All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of League One on the Rocks. Tonight is a special episode. We're going to be doing our mid-season special. My name is Rich. You can find me on Twitter at I'm Rich, but I'm not. Joined as always by the original cast of the upcoming Barbie movie. He was originally cast as Ken. You can find him on Twitter at Mediocre Ace. Brian, how you doing, man?
Yeah, not too bad. Ryan Gosling's going to do a fantastic job with the role. I had to turn it down, so um, that's just how it works.
You're just that dedicated to the show. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
And if you guys are watching on YouTube, you are obviously seeing the guests that we have on here. We've been putting it on Twitter. We have from Walking 90, we have Chip and we have Yogi. Guys, how are you doing?
Good.
I'm doing all right. I can't complain in the Orlando humidity, so I've sweated
Yeah.
my fair share of liquor out.
I guess my big question about the Barbie movie is they have that screenshot going around of Ryan Gosling in like all black. You think there's like a villain, like heel turn or something?
Oh,
Or do you think it's like a
Gotta
Pixar movie where there's no villains?
was that Spider-Man 3 where he has the black Spider-Man suit?
Yeah, Venom.
Yeah.
That was just a bad movie.
That's my hot take for the Barbie movie. It's going to be there'll be some weird twist like Ken's the bad guy or Barbie's the bad guy or something like that.
Yep.
But
And then we also have Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I have not seen Barbie this weekend, but I am seeing Oppenheimer on Monday. Took work off. Should be exciting. What a time to be alive. Omaha's in the playoffs. Playoffs in the thing and everything else. So great time.
And then the man covering everything Lexington sporting related, as well as co-host of the USL show. We have Tyler back on the show. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing good. As far as team performance, could be doing better, but I'm hoping we turn our fortunes around this weekend. Nothing says a season turnaround like beating a team in a playoff spot. So I'm staying hopeful.
Well, while we're on that topic, let's just go around the room and say one thing that we hate about Lexington, since it is Lexington Hate Week. I'm just kidding, Tyler. No, we're not going to do that.
Oh, shit.
Let's go.
Well, guys, we are doing a mid-season show tonight, and I don't know if you guys checked your emails. I sent out the StreamYard link, but I did not send out an outline for tonight. This is the first time we are doing a show without an outline. We're just going to straight talk about the season so far and cover some topics and have some fun tonight.
Y'all got an outline?
I know, man.
I can tell you, we just winged that motherfucker.
Yogi, I got to tell you, man, our outlines usually like 12, 13 pages.
It's all
Dang,
Not even
that's
kidding.
impressive.
Rich is Mr. Prepared over there normally.
Try to be.
Yeah, no.
He is.
I usually have like a page ready to go, but it's like very short things just to remind myself what I want to say. Because otherwise,
bullet points, and then we
Yes.
just go from there.
That's kind of what mine is, because otherwise I'm too ADHD and like I'll just get on like some random topic and then I'll forget what I was going to talk about in the first place. So I do a little bit, but if I get too much, then I'm just like, I'm not reading all that, even though I'm the one who wrote it.
Well, my very first question for you guys. Let's go all the way back to League One day one. There was a lot of hype surrounding some of the clubs that signed players. There was a lot of hype surrounding Forward Madison, with North Carolina, with One Knox. Where are you guys with the hype surrounding the teams that we just mentioned? Others that garnered some kind of hype as well.
For me personally, I would say that the hype is pretty much real. Well, a lot of maybe outside of One Knox, because when you looked at how One Knox built their roster, they put a lot of money into their first 11, and a lot of our concern was, all right, what's going on with the depth, right? That was really what it was there. But I felt like we were kind of spot on with Richmond. Like, we kind of felt like it was going to be a fallback year for them. It's going to be hard. Greenville was kind of pretty much the same. I think the one that I think a lot of us probably hit on it was injuries that really took them out, was Tormenta. Like, if you would have told me Tormenta is sitting near the bottom of the table, playoff, like outside the playoff race right now, I would have been like, all right, Kazai Sterling's been sold. Like multiple people have been sold. But no, it's just injuries and they can't. Like, I don't know what it is about Tony Mitchell, but no goalkeeper seems to want to take that position and hold it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the one Knox thing. I didn't want to sound like a big hater. Immediately, whenever I mention it, like half of like Knoxville's like in my mentions being like, it's just because we're rivals, and then they're like getting me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's you know, it kind of makes me feel better in a way because like one of the big storylines was them making a splash with cash and then us just being like, hey, let's sign a bunch of young people. And they're doing good, but I don't know if they're doing as good as they could be for how much money they spent, which I mean, not that I have the figures in front of me or anything, but in some ways I'm like, okay, maybe our fortunes will turn around down the line, maybe in a couple of years, but I don't know. But I agree with Yogi. I mean, a lot of the stuff that was predicted as far as, you know, who was going to be impactful, it's starting to really show itself. You know, there were some bumps along the way for a couple of the teams, and I think people started doubting a little bit here and there. But now we're starting to see that midseason turn, and the hype's getting real. And I think a lot of teams are starting to find their form and hold on to that form.
Are there any teams that you feel have yet to find their form?
I'm going to sound like a homer. Absolutely not. I'm going to sound like a homer, but that's fine. Richmond. I think Richmond hasn't hit their form yet just because I think so. Since I've been covering this team this year, it's been a lot of this team's been stuck in neutral, change their formation, bringing in new players. I think if Richmond can string together a win or two, like they can start to slowly climb up that table and challenge maybe for that third, fourth spot. I think winning the league is probably out of Richmond's idea right now, but I think they're there. Chattanooga, absolutely not. Like that team is a complete dumpster fire. Like,
well, they definitely haven't found their form. And the question is, who hasn't
I don't
found
think
their
they're
form
ever
yet?
going to find it. Not when your goalkeeper getting a red card in the 40th minute and like Jim Weekly coming back in there and just being like I really feel like when they fired Ziggy, they looked at Jimmy and was like, "What's your cash up again?" And Jimmy's just like, "I mean, you can pay me, but it is what it is." Like,
Right.
You did some walking around cash.
Fire here, bro.
Do you think they acted too soon in letting go of Ziggy?
No.
I would say yes. I think because like Chattanooga was unrealistic, knowing what the amount of players that were leaving and the amount of talent that was leaving. And you hired this coach when like February, when everyone else already kind of had their coach and everything like that. Like it just really, and it was hard for him already because he couldn't go out here and sit down with Chaney and be like, "Hey, I want to bring you to Chattanooga," because Chaney by that time was already committed to Fort Madison, right? Like it's hard for him to come in and recruit the guys that he did. While saying that, I also understand why Chattanooga fired him because the ideas on the field just weren't correlating. Like you have people like God, he used to play for us now. I can't remember his name. But him, player A, it's like playing right back. And it's just like, what are y'all doing? Like, you know, I don't know. But yeah, I think they fired him maybe a little bit too early. Just my opinion.
Do you think that with all of the NISA players that came over, does that change your opinion on NISA, on where you hold USL in that ladder? I guess what's your opinion on that situation?
I think for NISA, I think they are a tier right below USL League One. And I mean that's not me being biased, but like go read Protagonist. They just interviewed Matt Bodo, who used to play for us. And in that article, you can read it and see like they're a level below us. Like he was like, yeah, Flower City's doing some good things, but it's really hard to get into a league and be competitive when you're taking multiple weeks off and you know you don't play consecutive games and some organizations are good. Like he shouts out Chattanooga Bobcats in Maryland. I mean Chattanooga FC and Maryland Bobcats. And those are two organizations. You ask anyone that's competent in lower league soccer, like, all right, those two stand out. But he doesn't mention like LA Force or
San Diego.
Right, or any other team, you know, and it just shows you like where those quality of teams are. outside of the two that are there. Maybe the big three in NISA, which is also Michigan Stars as well.
And I feel like even you see it with the players too. When the players come to USL One, they don't really treat it like it's a lateral move. A lot of times, like they, from my impression, from what little I've talked with, some of the players, it's almost like it feels like a step up in their mind, and just a progression. And I think it is kind of cool though that we see that there is talent in NISA to be tapped, and maybe that also reinforces the idea that maybe NISA is just below a tier, but. I mean, for instance, take Robertson coming to us. I mean, he's been a stud and coming out of Chattanooga. So I think that there's a lot to be said for, what players you can get from that system. But I'd have to agree with Yogi.
Yeah.
Well, I think, too, it's one of those deals where even like pretty good players, unless you're like at a Chattanooga, it is a step down. Like if you're playing for the LA Force, like, cool. But even then, I know there was a guy who recently signed for Chattanooga FC, Blue Chattanooga, not Red Chattanooga, and I guess he'd been bumming around League One training camps for a while and just couldn't make a cut. And he's there, he's playing, so I guess that says something too. But I think it's always interesting too, because even in League One, there's a quality level between certain teams. Like if someone signs for Fuego, that may not be the same level as playing for like a Chattanooga FC. And we see the same thing in championship, right? Signing for Phoenix Rising or Tampa Bay Rowdies is a much bigger deal than signing for Loudoun. I think he's not here anymore, so I don't think he would care as much about me telling the story. But I know Jay would famously talk to guys, and if they had an offer from Loudoun, it'd be like, it's not really a championship. But yeah, I mean, you can go there and you can go play, but it's not what you're probably looking for. And I just think you always have different quality among leagues. And I think that is very apparent when guys who are studs at championship can come down to League One and not be nearly as good.
I think that's actually a great segue into a new topic. So we've had a lot of championship players come down to League One. We've seen Dane over in Charlotte. We have Dos Santos here in Omaha. Who do you think has had the biggest impact coming down from championship?
Coming down from the championship this year? Oh man,
I feel like it'd have to be Kelly, right? So, I mean, if you look
That's
at what
where I lean.
Yeah.
well, I mean, Kelly came down last year, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he came down late last year. It might have been last year. Either way, I mean, it's just if you look at like what Dos Santos has done for Omaha, at least he's done some good things, but he hasn't come in and been that big striker that is coming down from championship to score a ton of goals and do that. Like he more or less takes up space, and you can see that the skill is there, and he's starting to find his own now, but it's taken him 17 games into the season to start finding form. I mean, especially coming down from championship, it's really tough.
Yep. And I mean, we've also had players like Devin Boyce coming back to Greenville. He was in the championship last season. So
he's the one I would say probably is having the best season. If anyone coming back from the championship, just because when he left to make that move to Memphis, we were all kind of thinking like, all right, he's going to be with like Villader and all of them. Like he's going to stick. And if you kind of cracked his career last year, it was kind of just like, all right, he started the first 3 or 4 games. I remember there's a game that was really bad. And then it wasn't until Chip told me like he was injured, but I thought like he just got benched. And you could just tell like his confidence just wasn't the same. Like it was like anytime he played, it was like 5 minutes here and there. And then him coming back to Greenville, I kind of felt like he kind of just wiped the slate clean. It was just like, all right, let me establish who I am. But he's not the same player like he was in Union Omaha. He's a little bit different now. I think that's good.
And I think too the part of the problem was Memphis went and they signed Boyce and Aaron Malloy, who essentially played the same position, and said, we took like the 2 best guys from League One. One of them will work out, one of them won't. And Malloy very clearly has worked out for them. He's one of the best players in the league. I'm personally, especially since he's European, kind of shocked he's still at USL Championship.
Yeah, I mean he's he's a special guy. Like, I remember watching him on those Madness teams. He just sounded like, yeah, this Madness team would be worse if he wasn't here.
Well, right. I mean, and I think that's always a fun thing to think about is like how bad that Madison team was already bad, but without Aaron Malloy, like, woo.
Yeah.
And he was like a pretty late signing too, because he got signed from like Sounders or Timbers Academy, like
I think
USL 2 team or whatever. And so it was like, okay. And then he had the season he did. And I do remember that when he was up for MVP, it was like, okay, that's odd, but go off. But I think he's almost had the best recent career since I've been following the league of guys going from League One to Championship. I mean, Diadare's been good, but he hasn't necessarily been like transcendent. Hurst has been fine. Conway's been pretty good. I mean, you've had some good guy.
What's his name that was at North Texas? Damas.
Oh.
Damas just probably had the best.
Yeah, those guys
career
don't
path. You want to say?
Yeah, they don't.
He's been really good at San Diego. Diadare has been the most consistent because I know he's always in 11 in Sacramento. And, what's his name? We just talked to him literally from Madison.
Malloy.
Yeah, Malloy is probably the star, right now.
Yeah, I don't think you can count those MLS 2 guys because like there were some really good players at North Texas who are only really there because they were part of that academy system.
Oh, what's his name? Zamudia, the goalkeeper that was at Charlotte, I believe. He's doing pretty well at Pittsburgh right now. I think they're leaving the championship in clean sheets. So he's doing decent there. So.
Yeah, and Alal from Omaha finally signed with them, and he's been playing pretty regularly for them as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So we keep hearing people talk about how the difference between League One and Championship isn't that great. It's not a very big distance. You guys did an entire show on promotion relegation. So, do you think that League One teams would have a legitimate chance if they were promoted into Championship or even that intermediary league?
Yeah. I mean, I think for sure, because you got to think essentially what they're going to do is especially the silly little rumor that apparently has legs about NCFC going back up to Championship, which why would you let them do that after just going down and then like I mean, I'm sure the answer is they're writing a giant ass check, but it's like we have League One. There's tiny little cities that are getting championship teams, like the Rhode Island team, Northwest Arkansas, which is rumored to be a League One team forever. Des Moines is, 400,000 people smaller than Omaha. It's like there's some tiny markets that they're letting go up to league or to championship. So the split's going to happen there. And I think that's the big thing, which, whatever, like it'll all come out in the wash. If you suck, you're going to go down. If you're good, you're going to go up. But I think like the top level of championship currently, which would be they're going to call it USL Premier. We already know what they're going to call it. It's going to be like gold branding or something, and they'll change championships branding. Like it's going to be USL Premier. But the teams in USL Premier, which are going to be like, your Phoenixes, your Louisvilles, your Tampa Bays, they're good. There's a lot of investment in the teams. They're pretty close to MLS level, especially like the guys on there could probably be on the bench for MLS teams. That's a completely different ballpark. The League One teams certainly could hang out with the bottom of the table in Championship. Like there's a lot of teams in Championship where it's like, you guys are not very good. Cough, Rio Grande Valley. Cough,
or Hartford.
Cough, Hartford. Cough.
Yeah, Hartford's the one that I'm like.
Hartford's down.
There's a couple of ways that Hartford League One teams would be like, oh yeah, we can get this.
I was gonna say, I think I want to look before I say anything too, because I haven't looked at the championship standings in a while, so I don't want to accidentally say something and have like USL tactics on my ass. But like, well, actually, Monterey Bay's in second in the West. Like, yeah, I don't watch a lot of championship. But like Las Vegas Lights, like, what are we doing here, guys? Interestingly enough, they might have a worse playoff thing than us. They're just looking at this. Only 4 teams from each division don't make it. So we complain about half the teams making it. 60% of the teams make it there, and I think like that's crazy.
Yeah. Once
Yeah.
they expanded it, it really expanded.
Yeah.
And I mean that's my semi-hot take is that there should be less playoff games in general.
Yeah.
What if we
I
just
feel
went to a bowl system? Like USL League One is like, all right, the 4 versus 6 seed, you guys get to play in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah.
Like
I like it.
imagine that. Like that's how we
Yes.
saw the championship. Like we just, all right, we just bring it in the bowl system.
Yep.
bowl games all day.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but who gets to be the BCS then in this? Is
The
that
team
us?
Well, it depends on who wins the 1 versus 6 matchup. So can NoCo beat Greenville in a Chick-fil-A bowl? You know, that determines a lot. You know, and then we'll go from there.
But I think that that's it's always an interesting point with stuff like that is what is the best answer? And the answer is the league wants as many games as possible. They want inventory. People want to host playoff games. You want these storylines because I don't really think with playoffs it's about rewarding like the best team over the course of the season. It's just kind of like let's make the spectacle that people want to tune in and watch, and then we can charge double the ticket prices for whoever hosts the final, and then the league gets a cut. It's like there's all it's a money making thing, but I don't know. But I think ultimately that's the big thing is if they actually do go to promotion and relegation, it's not a cure-all. It's not going to solve everything. It's not perfect. But I think that's always the problem is people, whenever there's a thing for change, always say, well, it's not perfect, so we shouldn't do it. It's like, well, we're going to be waiting around for perfect forever. We might as well do something. And, it encourages teams to sign guys to longer-term contracts. It encourages teams to spend more money to go up. It encourages, teams to spend more money to not go down. It encourages all sorts of stuff. And, I think they've really, and as a League One fan, first of all, it'd be great to get rid of the low rent people like the Crane Kick Lexes of the world because we'll be in USL Premier and they'll be in League One still. But, it would be nice to like, right now there's not even prize money if you win the championship game. You get to sell some T-shirts and put a star over your crest and
bring in the bowl system.
That's about it. Well, the problem is there's no broadcast money. That's the real thing. It's everyone, and that's like what I think the silly thing too is everyone's talking. It's so many MLS fans talking about ProRel and USL like they know what they're talking about, which is always funny. So like, well, the revenue drop going down is going to be horrible, and it's like, what revenue drop? They don't make any money off TV. There's no like broadcasting. There's no like
right.
Bro, we're all on ESPN Plus and sometimes YouTube if you're lucky.
Well, I think that's the thing too. Is I think most of the teams that have gone down from Championship to League One are better for it.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe that's finding the appropriate level for the spending of your ownership group or whatever. Because it's like, would you rather see your team just absolutely get like their head busted in and week out, or would you rather go down and maybe win some trophies?
Outside of 2 teams, every team has a legitimate shot of making the playoffs. Like, you're not getting that in the championship.
No.
You're not getting that there.
Right.
But it'll be interesting. I mean, I think one, they're not voting on doing it. They're voting on talking about doing it. And we also don't know if it even has the votes to pass. Like, is this something that got leaked to like rally votes or whatever? But, and we go listen to the Walking 90 episode about promotion relegation. They'll link to it on League One on the Rocks. But, we talked about on our podcast as well for that is I think it's going to be interesting because I think if you're a League One owner, you're probably voting for it.
Yep.
And now if you're a top of the championship team, you're probably voting for that too, because you just saw what happened to San Diego. And they don't doesn't care about there being a team there. And so it's like, well, they're going to keep expanding. They're addicted to expansion money. And it keeps going up and up and up to the point where you're going to have a hard time finding teams that are going to be able to put together the 600 million it's going to be for whatever this Las Vegas team is. Like you're going to be hard pressed to find that. So they're just going to find someone else. And then there's another team in your market that's MLS. And then it's like, well, what are we now? Chopped liver. And so that as much as they can protect their brand by increasing the level of play to increase like the level the players are bringing in, the prestige around it, which is why all of a sudden they're going for the League One or Division One standing, which, I don't think it will matter to most casual soccer fans. But then, you have a chance for CONCACAF Champions League. You have a better chance of getting out of country opponents that want to come in because they want to play a first division team. It's probably easier to sell sponsors. So overall, it's interesting. Probably the teams that don't want to do it are just the teams that are kind of in the dog shit middle of the championship. But I think for the most part, at least how I would look at it is, I think most of them are going to be for it. But we'll see August 8th.
I agree with you. Yeah, from what we've heard from multiple people, it does sound like the vote is going to go through because of the fact that, like you said, it's not a vote on whether or not we're going to actually institute it here and now. It's just about discussing it further down the road. And once again, Chip already talked about it, but if you have not gone over to Walking 90 to listen to the Promotion Relegation podcast episode, among their other episodes, go listen to that episode. It's a very good one. If you want to do some reading as well, if you look at Kyle's Twitter, he did a thread about the various issues involved with promotion relegation, and he laid it all out there, and it was a really good thread too. It was really cool. So Tyler, switching from promotion relegation, this kind of bleeds into sporting because with Lexington, they seem to be playing the long game, and we kind of see that with North Carolina now. They also have a youth system that has 16,000 kids in it. I don't see Lexington, getting that, with no disrespect to Lexington or their youth academy, but I don't see them getting 16,000 youth in their academy anytime soon. But with Lexington playing the long game, do you think that is going to make them a viable threat, like for League One, even in this promotion relegation scenario?
I mean, I think so. I don't see why not. And speaking on like the idea of North Carolina having 16,000 kids in the youth system, we have little over 1,500, I think, maybe a little bit more than that. I can't remember the exact number right now. So it is a pretty big difference. But I feel as though if you have a quality program and you're really putting in the work and you're trying to kind of have this top to bottom idea of what you want and what you want to develop, then it can work. And you don't need 20,000 kids to be able to find those ones that can work in the system and really want to do well and move up through it, and you can invest in. If anything, I feel like in some ways you can concentrate that more, because you're not spread quite as thin. And so I think that it could pay off in a big way. I mean, Louisville's been doing that. They've been seeing dividends. Obviously they've been able to really produce some great talent out of their academy. And I think that that's something that we're really shooting for. And I think sometimes it's kind of hard for fans to see like what's happening right now and forget that there is that long game. There is that whole idea of, no, they're building something. Even current players on the team, we have some really young guys on the team that have not seen very much action, and it's not because they're bad. It's not because they can't perform. It's because there's a plan in place for them to essentially, be understudies and keep developing, and then us to continue that whole system year after year after year, and then that stuff is just going to distill down until you finally have what you really want. That's going to be able to permeate throughout everything. So I think that it's going to take time. And I think that it will eventually pay off. And when it does, I think that we'll be fine, and, it's kind of a big topic right now, Lou City being so close. That's just a natural born rivalry. We're already rivals as far as our college sports are concerned. So if we can make that actually a fixture and be in the same tier as them and meet more often, that's going to pay off big time. I think that's going to cause an explosion in popularity of the sport in this region. And I think that we're going to get a lot more buy-in on both sides of the fence. And I'm hopeful that that can happen. I know Lou City is just perennial contenders. They're constantly putting in work and doing really good. I know they're it's a little bit of a weird spot right now. I know they're not super pleased with what's happening, but I don't think it's out of the question that at some point maybe we meet in the middle. And then we have that kind of special thing built, which I think is going to be really cool. So I'm hopeful. I think that it's a possibility. I know we've got a lot of work to do, though. It'll be a while before we earn our own right to complain about an asterisk, but we'll get there eventually.
And speaking of that work to do, you have been the source of a lot of optimism for a lot of the Lexington fans this season. What are you telling fans right now concerning the second half of Lexington's season?
I mean, a lot of it's what I just mentioned is there's a long game involved. And it's really funny because a lot of people at the very beginning were like, oh, we're not going to win win the trophy, win the championship in the first year. Everything's going to be too new. And then those people, not all of them, but a lot of people have switched and they're like, what do you mean we're not going to get first place in the league? It's kind of weird, which I mean, in some ways it's kind of cool because that means they're buying in and they have expectations. And that means that they really want us to win. But I mean, I know not everybody's going to be as optimistic as me. I've had a few people even call me out for being overly optimistic, but I don't really feel it does anybody any good if everybody out there is just constantly being like, yeah, everything's terrible and I hate this team and I hate everything about it. And I don't think we're there yet. You know what I mean? I think we're too early. We're too young. We're too fresh. Everything started from scratch. And, everybody wants to compare us to this team or this team. One of the big comparisons is always us to Knoxville. Knoxville had a year to try and figure themselves out. They had continuity with a lot of things. We did not have any continuity because we were fresh. And I think that it's just reminding people that we are fresh. This is all new. It takes time. It's not just like you get a bunch of people together and a month later they're going to win championships. It's just not. And think through how many teams have had to go through processes over multiple years to find the right composure or the right system, the right setup of guys to really have that chemistry to make things happen. It's going to be a slow burn, and it's not always going to be, yay, everything's great. But I'm trying to also tout the community aspect because I think that's one of the cool things that we do have going for us is we're starting to see more of that pickup where people are connecting on the fan level and actually, creating something there that I think is going to have legs. And at the end of the day, is going to be more important than anything that happens on the field.
And I think that's well said too, because so much of it isn't necessarily just like playing, but it's playing and growing the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the big thing in building that culture, developing talent, building the team that you want to build. And I think that's the thing is I think it's really hard to do like what Omaha did the first year where you jump in and make the championship. This league's gotten a lot better. The quality of the play has gone up every single year. The quality of the teams has gone up every single year. It's not like it was the first 2 years where, teams just are running away with the whole thing. It's been tight. It's been, a trench fight the whole way through. And, building yourself for success in year 2 is probably going to be the path forward. And like you said, Tyler, it's a good point is One Knox signed a lot of guys from their League 2 team who did really, really well. They already scouted those guys. They already knew those guys. And so I think things are definitely looking up for Lexington. And I would much rather be a Lexington than I would like a Fuego or Chattanooga right now.
Yeah. And that's one thing I will say. I feel like, I'm in a position where I have access to a lot and not everything, but a lot. And so sometimes I see things or hear things that people don't always see or hear. And I think it's hard for people to fathom that there is a plan and that everything is moving in conjunction. It's all one big megazord. It's all these moving parts that have come together and it has a job and it's going to get there and it's going to stumble along the way. But, we're going to get there. And I feel like there's a lot of support throughout the top to bottom and there's a lot of vision. And I don't think there's any disconnect that I've noticed or heard of that maybe some other teams have suffered from, because I think that's really what does you in is when you don't say, well, here's our vision, or when you don't have a cohesive system that you can tell is moving in a particular direction. And I feel that we do. And it's just, like I already said it's tricky whenever it's something like sports because it's very tied to results. It's hard to be a fan and watch your team not perform or lose. and just think, oh, well, this is okay because eventually we'll get there. People want it now. There's like that instant gratification. No matter if there's that little voice in your head that says, well, think about this, this, and this. You're like, well, no, I want to think about wins. And I think that it'll come. It's just a matter of time.
Please tell me that Sam Stockley is as cool as he is, like he seems on the podcast, as he is from afar.
Yeah, in my dealings with him, he's always super genuine, and he
Yeah.
always has like the same message. And of course, like all the coaches, he has like his coach speak, and you can tell when he's in that mode. But then he also has like that side of him that you can tell that's what pulled players in and got them to actually want to come play there. And that's really nice to see because you can tell, okay, this is the charisma it's bringing people here, and that charisma is eventually going to reach out even further. Because that's another little aspect that you have to wonder is like how many people didn't come to Lexington because of all the unknowns, and we're just like, I don't really know what's going on here, and I don't know what's up. But I think having somebody like him, he's going to be able to be a magnet for that stuff in the future. He's a cool guy. I've always thought he's real genuine and upfront.
I feel like Stockley, Eamon Zayed in Northern Colorado, and oh my gosh, Sawatsky. I feel like those guys would all be cool guys to go out and like get a beer with.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, like Stocks is definitely one of those chill, have a beer, like a pub type of dudes. Like it's cool.
Who's the least cool USL One coach do you think you get a beer with?
The least cool.
Ooh, good one. Let's throw someone under the bus.
So I'm trying to think what I know. Glazer.
Glazer, really?
Look, I know Madison fans gonna hear that and think like I'm only saying this just because I'm a Richard fan. No, like I'm just looking at trends of Glazer, and I'm not gonna front. I'm not a big fan of his. Like just the way how last year he threw his team under the bus, and it was like you spent an entire year coaching these guys, and like you're like, oh well, last season sucked because it wasn't me. Like it's on them, and it's like, but now this year you're being the front runner. We're top of the table. We're this, we're that, and it's just like, where was his energy at last year? Like you spent all the last year moping around being a dickhead to your players. That in part, like you chose to stick around. Like you could have changed it. Like no matter how late you came in, you had an effect of whether or not they stayed. I don't know. I just think like he's one of those guys where it's like, it's not my fault. It's everyone else's fault. So I wouldn't want to have a beer with him.
Do you think
Interesting
would be fun to get a beer with?
Who?
Weekly.
See, that was my automatic choice is going to be him. But then at the same time, with some of the off the field stuff, like he might actually have some fun conversations.
I'm gonna say no on Weekly just because I'm not trying to go to the strip club. So Yogi and I probably have widely different answers.
No, honestly, the coach I would want to have a drink with. Well, I take it back. The coach that I would want to have shots with is Sam Stokely because Sam looked like he'll take a couple of shots just off the rip.
Yeah. He's got that vibe. I'm telling you.
Yeah, he'll take a couple of shots.
Yeah.
He just be like, all right, let's do another.
Yeah. He's a fun guy. He really is. I was gonna say, like Weekly, you go out with him, you might end up in like the next installment of the Hangover movies.
Yeah,
like,
perfect.
I don't know. It like sounds fun, but only if somebody else is watching it.
Oh man.
And speaking of partying, Yogi, what the hell are you guys doing out there to get City Stadium rocking?
Dude, honestly, man, it's the front office, yo. Like they've done an amazing job this year of getting the community back into it, man. So for a lot of people who don't know, this year Richmond, even with the results on the field, is average. I would say no less than like 4.8 a game. Like I remember back in 2019, 2018, I'll be lucky to walk in to say there's 2,000 people. Like, I always made this joke with my wife about like, she was like, "Oh, I could come to the game at 6:30. I know I have a parking spot up front," because that's how empty it used to be. But now it's like you show up at 6:30 and you got to park like 6 blocks away to get to City Stadium. Man, it's building a unique atmosphere. I think also like the Kickers front office has done a good job of putting the information out there and making it accessible. Also, winning helps. Like when you win, more people are going to show up. Because I've seen this team during the years when they were dog crap. 2018 we gave up 80 goals. Not fun. Stadium was pretty thin there, and just having those people in the stadium. I think also a good measure about it is the fact that you're seeing so many people in the stadium with Kickers gear on is not like how it was in years past of people showing up with your Liverpools, your Man Uniteds, your top European jerseys. They're coming in there with Kickers merch on, like old school Kickers jersey. Like there was a old school Kappa Richmond Kickers jersey from like '98 that I saw in the stadium. I was like, oh, like I've never seen that before. But I mean, we're talking about a club that's been around for 30 years, and this is probably their best year attendance wise. So yeah, I mean, and I think more people are getting knowledgeable about the game of soccer here in the city. I think it's probably a little bit more easier to watch. I mean, Richmond's not a big sports city anyway. Like you ask most of the people in Richmond, like who they support, most of them will tell you it's like Washington or Charlotte or somebody else. Like there's no one in Richmond. So the fact that Richmond is able to get 5K sellouts and things like that, it's a testament to all the work they do and things of that nature.
Man. And you have been a huge Terzaghi stan.
Yes, because look, matter of fact, let's address this now.
Let's go.
Look. I know you Omaha people's gripes about EVD year one. Who was it? Being there the year before after that, and I understand it. If any other year Terzaghi's not in this league, I get it. They deserve to win it. But if you take Terzaghi away in those 2 years, year three, I can argue with you. It should have been Bolaños. It should have been Bolaños. But year one and year two, you take Terzaghi away from the teams, Rich is bottom of the table. Like that man is. I still don't understand how he's tied for second right now in the Golden Boot after the start he had. Like he literally gave the league a head start. It was like, all right, I'm just about to score now.
Yeah,
like it's crazy.
Yeah, he leaned forward in his chair playing like 2K.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he did. He was like, all right, I'm going to wait to Tormenta to score my first league goal. And then I'm going to score.
Yeah.
Funny thing.
I feel like anytime anyone jumps on Terzaghi, you're like the first one to defend him. So I love it whenever you get involved because I love seeing your viewpoints on anything Terzaghi related.
Because man, like people bring on the fact like, oh, he's a tap-in merchant. Do you understand how many people in this league will pay for a tap-in merchant? Like you understand how?
Yeah.
Like what? Man, I'm telling you, man. Like if there's two people in Richmond who I would defend with my life outside of Luke Pavone, because Luke is my guy, I would defend Luke Pavone to the death of me. It's Akira and Emmy. And I know I've been talking about like, all right, it's time to put Akira to that because, like, granted, Akira's older. Like, Will Palmer's has shown he's good. But Akira from like 2020, 2021, I mean, like the goalkeeper works between him and Nuhu is some of the best stuff in U.S. soccer, man. Like, you couldn't go wrong about who you was choosing. It was always like, all right, if you want Nuhu or do you want Akira? And you couldn't go wrong. You could not go wrong.
And Akira seems like such a wholesome guy too.
Oh yeah, he is. I look, we call him the Hokage of Southside Richmond because he is he is that guy, man. He is a lovely guy. He's
Brian, I don't mean to keep like jumping in here. Like, feel free to jump in and like throw a question or something like that.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
I will catch up with the live chat real quick. We had a few things earlier, but I'm gonna jump in with Alex Ashton, League One updater as well. Going back to talking about showing up at 6:30 to a Richmond match. Now you're gonna get stuck in traffic getting to the stadium if you get there at 6:30.
Yeah. And
then Tim, Ranting Blue Penguin Media, talking about Terzaghi saying he keeps getting, what are those things called? Penalties.
Hey, look, he's a 5'4" Argentinian.
We need to find a way to work
Yeah.
penalty into his name so we can just start debasing him online.
I know
Every time
you
he scores a
Omaha
goal,
fans.
Ronaldo,
Granted, y'all won the game
Ronaldo.
4-1, but look, let's just be real. If you're gonna put Terzaghi in that situation, you don't think this man gonna fall? Like, come on now. Like,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we saw the discourse, and I know that's been a big thing the past day now. They're talking about penalties and the referees and stuff like that. But like, you got to realize, like, the thing that makes him so good at what he does is he knows when he can take those falls because he knows when it's going to be called and when it's not going to be called. Granted, it's wildly inconsistent, and that is the only gripe that I have with the officiating in this league is one match something is called a penalty, the other match it's not called a penalty. If they can get that sorted out and it's one way or another, so at least we know every single time if you take a fall in the box or you get knocked over in the box, it's a penalty. Everybody knows that. That's how it's going to be. Then it's fine. No big deal. Or the opposite way. If you fall in the box and it looks like you fell, it's not a penalty anytime. Fine. Awesome. But they need to be able to, the players got to know what they can and cannot do on the field. And they're not set up. These referees are not set up right now to be able to make those calls consistently. And whether that's down to training or that's just down to like how everything's been called and they're trying to keep the status quo. But I mean, going to the Union Omaha thing last night too. It wasn't just like the missed penalty calls and then the red card call. I mean, there were some blatant balls that Union Omaha got that should have went the other way. Like you could tell it bounced off a Union Omaha player. No, that's their ball, but somehow Union Omaha still gets the throw. It's like, what is going on? There's just no consistency. There's no standard, it seems like. And that's the thing that's so frustrating. This is supposed to be a professional league, but we have officials that aren't up to that professional par right now.
but that's also the thing of being the third league. Like, you're not going to get the best guys, right? Like, we're getting the guys that are like who probably been a professional referee for a year, maybe 2 years tops.
Yeah.
Know? Like, these are guys, like the guy that's the head ref in League One is probably the assistant VAR guy in the MLS game. You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's the guy that we're dealing with. So, like, I remember Darren telling us, like, that's the frustrating part about it because you want the standing of referee to be better, but you also got to understand, like, League One is developmental in a sense, not only for the players, but also for the referees, because this is where a lot of them come in, they get their start, they show, like, oh, this is how I call this is how I call that. And I mean, honestly, like you see it, like, the guys that are, like, egregiously bad, like, you know, they probably won't referee again. But the guys that are consistently more than, like, you know, they stick around for a little bit. But I will say this when it comes to referee, I think the thing that will help out the most, if this is just me, like, I don't think VAR is the correct way to go yet, but I would love to see Hawkeye come in just to help out with some of, like, those like balls that are right on the line. Like, I feel like every stadium in League One can host Hawkeye technology for the better part, you know?
It's tough. I know we've been on the wrong end of a couple of those things. Like when we should have beaten Noco, like Altes Diouf, he was not offside. I'm like, my seat is literally right there, like lined up, and I was losing my mind about it. And Brian, you talked about red cards. It's like when Fox earned that red card back against Charlotte early in the season, and they got that pin. Like, basically the game was trying to be given away, and then they overturned the red card because it was bogus. And it's kind of funny because actually my wife, one of her coworkers, her husband refs for, like, at the collegiate level here locally. And he actually sometimes knows the refs out there, and he'll tell me, he'll kind of be like, all right, this guy, this is how he tends to call things. This guy, we got to watch out. This is not good that we have him. And so then I'm like sitting there all the time. I'm like, now I'm extra stressed out, because he kind of has an idea. Yeah. And there was one time that the ref had asked him to pick up a bottle of bourbon when he went somewhere. It was kind of a rare one. And he joked, and he's like, I'm gonna have to text him and tell him that he's never gonna see that bottle of bourbon again if he doesn't call this right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting getting that perspective, and having somebody there that, he'll like call it right as they're about to, or if it is like a really bad one, he's like, man, I got to talk to him after this. But it's tough. It's tough dealing with that, especially when you can see it clearly and that it's just a missed call.
Yeah.
And while I've waited for player interviews after the match ends, I've seen on multiple occasions the referee crew surrounded by police officers being escorted out of the stadium. So it's a safety protocol, but at the same time, it's no secret that they're the antagonist wherever they go.
Yeah. Like they're the people that it's so funny. Like they're the people that fans are always going to play no matter what. Like if your team's playing great, you're not complaining about the refs. But as soon as your team loses and you feel like, we didn't get this all right, you're blaming the refs. And it's also funny you mentioned because like in City Stadium, like the referee shower right where the kickers whole dressing room is. So if you ever been to City Stadium, like that stand that everyone thinks about is like, it's condemned. Well, those are the locker rooms. So the referees, so when we do post games, we do it like right there where you can see the referees walk in, but they have to walk in before the players get in because if not, like Nathan Audia, I know is going to cuss some ref out and get a red card after the game because he didn't cuss the ref out.
Oh man.
Well, speaking of refs,
good at all?
what's going to happen to Mr. Dominic Cassiato?
You don't look like you feel very good.
Well, I thought it was just going to be a fine, but it sounds like there may be a suspension involved as well. I hope it's not, but.
Well, how many times did he record that before the team finally said, "Okay, you can post that"?
Just try to drink some more water,
Man.
and then
because
come up and
Jax is not posting anything willy nilly. That came through, and he's
about
like,
an hour. We're only staying until like an
"Hey,
hour 15.
yeah, Pete said you got to redo that one. Like you're gonna get in trouble."
I've been there when Dom has recorded those post,
Turn the AC
game
down a little bit.
This
thoughts
was his
and everything.
second one. He had a first one, and they re-recorded that one from like the hotel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, because most of the time I guess every single time that I've watched, what you see that they post on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff is what they record like there in the moment. It's like it's a one take.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that they had to do multiple takes.
Well, I'm assuming. I mean, I doubt they just were like, yeah, this looks good. We're gonna post this on official social media and like this is our post game thoughts with Coach Dom. It's like I don't know that there's multiple takes, but I would assume that there was some vetting before they posted that because that is I think you're gonna get in trouble for doing that. And it's like,
oh yeah,
maybe they don't care. And I guess, I don't know. What are they going to do?
I'm personally surprised that they released that statement at all.
Yeah.
I thought they would have like had a little sit down with him like, hey, I know that you think that, but we can't record that and put it out there.
Yeah. But, again, I think that's the thing is good on him for doing that. 'Cause you're going to get in trouble for it somehow.
Yeah.
And the thought process at that point becomes, I don't care. Like I'm going to say this thing that I believe to be true. I don't care if I get in trouble for it because that's the right thing to do. I think that's very commendable of him. And, I don't know. Hopefully it's not too bad. I'm suppose we'll find out here in the next day or two.
Yeah.
Which will be funny if just like nothing happens. Like they call him and they're like, hey, we're going to spend Dom for a couple of games. Like, no, we don't think so. Okay, sounds good. Nice chat. Yep. See you guys.
Well, you just throw him up in the press box and then have him radio down all of his stuff. That's really what anybody does now. Yeah.
What are they going to do if he shows up? Like,
the
ref's probably not going to know. Like, put a little fake mustache on him.
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
Oh, it's not Dominic Cassiato. That's his brother, Leroy Cassiato.
Right.
Brian, didn't they do that with Jurgen Klopp? They had him like radio down with the walkie-talkie and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was sitting up in the in the
I remember
stands.
Sam
and just
Allardyce
radioed
had
down.
like the NFL headset on, and he was like directing these players, like calling, like he had the call sheet and everything. It was so funny.
I'm about to be in that stadium this weekend with my own walkie-talkie tuned to the same channel, just like
Yeah, exactly.
saying a bunch of bull crap in it.
Yeah.
He wants you to switch to a 6-5-1. Like, well, we don't have that many players. Just do it.
Listen,
Or what?
it's just what he said.
Yeah, send as many people on the field as you can.
Don't
Those
argue.
are so close. Those are so close too. You wonder if they even bothered coming home or if they're just like hanging out in Tennessee.
Probably so. They're probably in Tennessee.
Yeah, I would just assume they stay out there. Because I mean, what are you gonna? You're gonna spend so much more money coming back here and then go out. I know they were breaking the fourth wall here, but they released that like ad earlier today on social media, and it was like them walking around downtown Omaha doing stuff. It's just like, we know you guys didn't come back for that. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't come back to shoot a video and then go back out there. You guys have had that shot for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Well,
it is what it is. I'd stay
kind of
out
like
there
Central
too.
Valley Fuego. Every single time they have to like play North Carolina or something like that. Like, well, if we're going to be flying out to North Carolina, we better be playing Tormenta while we're out there or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't looked at their schedule, but I'm sure that's part of the consideration because there's nobody, especially with Tucson gone, like NOCO's the closest one, and that's a time zone and like almost half the country away.
Yeah.
All right, so we were all involved in the USL League One. I don't know, the questionnaire that they sent out.
Called it mid-season predictions.
Yeah. So which one of you had Union Omaha winning the championship?
Wasn't me.
Was it?
No, it was
No?
me. It was
you.
me.
It was you, Brian.
Oh yeah, I had Union Omaha playing forward Madison in the final, and Omaha beating Madison 2-1. So
Great redirect, man.
That would be a very bad internet day if that's what happened.
yeah,
I'd be talking so much shit.
that one I definitely did for the memes, but like, I mean, like my bold prediction for the second half was either NOCO, North Carolina, or Charlotte are not going to make the playoffs. Even like after the great start all three of those teams have had, I just feel like one of those teams is not making it.
Well, especially probably, I don't think NOCO just because they've been red hot.
Yeah.
Like they're averaging over 2 points a game.
Mhm.
Like, they have like
Yeah,
3
I'm all
games
in
in
on
hand and
NOCO.
they're still at the top of the table. It's like they're looking good.
I'm all in on Oko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Like,
NOCO a lot.
especially because I called out the goalkeeper Delgado, and everyone
Yeah.
was like, we all know. I'm like, bro, the kid is special, and the kid is special, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Trevor, Trevor is blowing it out the race right now. Arthur Rogers,
Yeah.
I think he's finally. I think Zion is finally playing him at mid, but that's a special team right now.
Yeah.
You know what's even crazier too is they're doing it without one of their best goal scorers too.
Yeah.
But he's back.
But he's back now. But I mean, just think you add him into a team that's already this good. Like NOCO's scary good, especially with him back on the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think
I remember.
that's the big-
Sorry,
Go
man.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tyler.
No, I remember I was on some pod earlier this season, like the beginning. I can't remember because I'm always on like all these random ones. It might have been either Soccer Crush, or maybe it was like One League Under the Sea. I forget. And I said that I thought that NOCO was gonna be top of the table by the end of the season, and like everybody like laughed at me. They were like, "Oh, you're so funny, Tyler," and I'm like, "No, I think so." And so now I'm like feeling a little vindicated. I'm like, "Hey, I got something right." That doesn't happen very often.
Well, I'm just glad that Eamon must have like a super short memory because he was roasting us earlier in the year when they had like 2 guys signed about having them last in the league. He's like, yeah, you have 2 players signed. Like, yeah,
No,
like, we
it
have
was
nothing to go.
It was, it was Eamon. It was just like Eamon. Like you got 2 players. He was like, but you can't doubt us, Eamon. You currently have 3 players right now. You legally cannot play a game.
Right. And I'm glad because he could 100% just like dunk on us if he wanted to with that. And it's like, I'm glad he's forgotten about that. They're winning so much. It's like, well, that's good. Just forget about that little old Which again, at the time, I will defend that pick because they had like 2 or 3 guys signed. It's like,
Right. It makes
I don't know
sense.
what your team's going to look like. Like, we don't know where you're going to play. Like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of question marks right now about your team.
Right.
Yep.
And he was the only person on this entire midseason predictions forum that was the league consensus for coach of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you can also throw Bradford in there. I guess you can want to throw Glazer. You can throw them in there, but there was a reason why last year I was telling Chattanooga like, throw your money at Iman, like bring him back to Chattanooga. Like, I wonder how much Chattanoogas were getting and not bringing him in. Because I mean, honestly, I would have been like, bro, you're the prodigal son. You can build this out however you want to. Whatever speech Everton has for Wayne Rooney to bring him to Everton, that's the same speech you have for Iman to come to Chattanooga. Like, just take that, change the names, and you say that same speech to him.
Do you think that he would have been able to keep Juan Galindrez and Rafa Mintzingen?
I don't think so, just because I think those guys were already in their mind, I want to go. Just because how toxic the environment was at Chattanooga. I think they were already out. But I think under Iman, I think you would have had a better roster construction and someone that already has a better idea of the league. Like, Ziggy came in more or less thinking like, all right, Nisa and USL League One are the same, right? I can bring my guys. It wasn't even a good Alvin's San Diego team. But Iman would have had a better understanding of the League One market, understanding how League One plays, and been like, all right, I can post this guy, I can get this guy, I can get this guy, and have a better roster, you know.
So how do you think they kept Carlos Aviles?
I'm assuming it had to be the thing
check?
of playtime. Like, oh, you're gonna play more. Like, I feel like that's what it was. I mean, you could go paycheck, but Chattanooga really hasn't even opened their checkbook this year. Like, they went to go get Mario Lopez, but Mario Lopez is like in his last legs, you know. So I'm assuming the thing had to be in Chattanooga. Like, all right, you're gonna play more, but like, okay, and yeah.
And I think we all had let's see. So we all had Zayed as the coach of the year. We all had biggest surprise being Noko as well. So who did each of you have in the final, and what did you have as your result?
I think I win Noko versus NCFC 3-2.
Yeah.
But I think at that time, I think I had NCFC hosting.
Okay.
Oh,
so hosting. Okay.
I didn't get spicy enough with mine, so I had something like that, which I doubt that's what we have. This league's been so crazy this year. It's going to be something weird and random, but I don't know. I think we all kind of failed the readers because none of us had like super spicy takes.
Yeah. What was your as far as my final, I had Noko over Madison 3-1. Tyler, who'd you have?
Noko over Ford Madison 2-1.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay, so spiciest take, what'd you guys have?
I want to redo mine, but I need to come up with a real good spicy take. Like, I want my take to be so spicy I don't get invited back. So, like, you didn't take this interview seriously.
I don't think I had anything super crazy.
I think yours was about one of those teams missing the playoffs.
I think that's the craziest one I had. But I mean, given how Charlotte's looked the past few weeks, that it really doesn't seem that crazy anymore. So,
Tyler, what about you?
We kind of did like a little bit of a community one with the USL show where we kind of all like put ours together. And so I think ours ended up being Omaha missing the playoffs.
Okay.
But I mean, you guys have really turned things around since that happened. So
well, that's not
I don't know how.
That's not even that spicy to take, though.
No.
We're like,
no.
I think we're in 6th right now.
Yeah.
Tied for 5th.
Yeah.
Is the team
it's
below
really
us
not that
also in
intense.
25?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
that's
think-
Greenville is at 25, but they have goal differential and wins on us.
Yeah, I could definitely see Omaha not making the playoffs still. Like, I think you're like 1 or 2 injuries away from that happening. Like, we are still in a very precarious spot. We really need to just beat up on those green ponies this weekend.
Injuries
It's
are
a
red
very-
cards.
Yeah. Well, let's see how many of those stick. But we need to get some wins, which they've been doing. So it's really hard to complain right now because they look like they're in great form. That Northern Colorado deal aside, but it is interesting. It looks like Omaha never talks. It looks like Nuhu's hurt again,
Mm-hmm.
and our defense has been our weakest unit this year. And so it's like, well, who's bailed us out when our defense hasn't been the greatest? Nuhu, and it's like, who's not there? Nuhu. It's like, woo, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So I test you. Big weekend incoming.
Yogi, what about you?
Oh man, I've been thinking about it. So my spicy take is this: either Richmond or Tormenta will make the playoffs. Not both, either one.
Oh, okay.
But whatever one makes it in will get to the final.
Ooh, damn.
Ooh.
Because I think like Richmond or Tormenta, I think they'll sneak in. They'll be the 5th or 6th seed, right? But they'll have that run in them where it's like, all right, we just playing on adrenaline. And I think the thing that hindered Richmond last year was obviously they took the week off before they played Chattanooga. And obviously we know how that game played out and whatnot, but you could just tell it just stalled them. And I think if you get this Richmond or Tormenta team in the playoffs and they could just be like, all right, we just playing off adrenaline, people don't think we're gonna win. I think they could go into some of these places and knock a team off.
Well, yeah. I mean, you already saw Tormenta do that last year.
Yeah. And Chattanooga too. Like
Mhm.
I mean, for real, if we be honest, Charlie came very close to it as well because they went into Tormenta and came very close to knocking them out. So it's yeah. Like, I think we're gone of the days of the Union Greenville winning the league, winning the title. I think we're
Yeah.
going to see a lot more regular season champion, very different than the playoff champion.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot more of that.
It's just such a different game when you get into
Yeah.
a playoff scenario. You know, it's worlds different than playing throughout the season and just the tactics and the approach that you take. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So it's
And
gonna be
I was really high on Richmond at the start of the season. I've kind of cooled off on Richmond a little bit, and it kind of fed into my spicy take. Yogi, I'm sorry, I'm going to piss you off here. My spicy take was that this is going to be the first season where Terzaghi is not going to win any postseason awards.
Oh, that's fine. That
MVP.
means I don't have to bleach my hair. That's good.
Yeah. So I had it so that he wasn't going to win MVP, Golden Boot, first team, second team, any of that. He wasn't going to be mentioned anywhere.
Yeah, that's gonna be that doesn't surprise me. Just given how this team been this year, they've been very, like I said, they've been very neutral.
Yeah.
Like they haven't been great, but they haven't been bad either. They just been neutral. And Terzaghi late start. How far Trevor? I think Trevor's ahead of five goals right now. And
He's at like 15 goals or something like that. And the
Yeah.
next closest is like 9.
yeah, so I mean, it's gonna be tough for Terzaghi to get any awards or recognition, but I'm pretty sure League was gonna find some way. They're gonna create a third team out of nowhere just to be like, all right, we gotta put Terzaghi in here.
Yeah.
He's gonna be the only dude on it too.
Yeah, right.
Legacy
Well,
award.
As we start to wind down the show, Brian, are we looking at anything in the YouTube chat?
Just we've got Allison saying, I thought that they heard they were staying out there. That was talking about our conversation earlier about teams staying if you're close to the coast where you're going to be playing. And Soup Loops, a Tormenta fan, saying, I don't think it's too unheard of for Tormenta. We have one more win than we did at last year at 16 games, but 2 more losses. Talking about Tormenta making the playoffs from Yogi's point there.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we do want to thank all of you guys for joining the show. We will certainly be inviting you guys back for future episodes. Everybody, continue checking out Walk in 90. They have hilarious episodes. They have really in-depth discussions about some topics, hilarious takes on multiple things. Very fun group of people to listen to. USL show, tons of like good discussions with plenty of knowledge and stats that you can get over there too. So everybody here is doing great work. We love all the stuff that you guys are doing. Now to promote our show, we have a special announcement here and now. Next week, we are going to be having an interview with play-by-play announcer John Green. So tune in next week. We're going to be having that interview, and we look forward to bringing you more content.
Mhm.
So thanks everybody for joining the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To be on.
All right. Thanks, guys.